Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now. I'm Greg Chris, of course, joined by Mr. Frank Fear. Frank, welcome in. Another Wednesday night, and we're drawing closer and closer to D-Day, and we can't wait. But we've going to shift gears just a little bit tonight. We've got a myriad of guests on tonight, and we're going to talk about a variety of things. But again, welcome in, and I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing great. Good to see you, Greg. And boy, are these the two biggest stories in the state with high school sports right around the corner. And obviously the Mountaineers getting ready to kick off in a couple Saturdays.
You know, I don't know what it is, but I know back for 32 years, in August when football season started, when I was no longer coaching football, I always started to get a little bit of depression. And just had a bad outlook because I knew what was around the corner. School was getting ready to start. For some reason, I'm not feeling that anymore. I saw the school buses out, and I was like, yeah, well, I think they're getting ready to start school. I don't even know what day they start. So it's kind of nice, actually. You mentioned the high school sports. That's going to be one of the topics. One of the things we're going to talk about tonight. We have a very special guest with us. We're excited about. The guy I've known for a long, long time. Watched him during his coaching career. He's been a teacher, coach, had done a little bit of everything. Now he's the executive director of the SSAC. And of course, the hot topic is the recent policy concerning high school and middle school players and the NIL. And, when I thought about having Wayne on, my thought wasn't, to get on here and bring out all the positives and negatives and argue or anything like that. I think there's a lot of questions that folks have, a lot of questions I have. I'm curious to know. And I know, again, with Wayne's coaching background, he's done it all. So he has I'm sure, a good feel for the way things may shake out with this. And we all have our opinions about the way it might happen. It's a little different animal with high school, middle school, and the colleges. It's going to be a little different, I think. And being from a rural area like I am, I think it'll be, I don't know if it'll change a whole lot, to be honest with you. But I think down the road, I think we'll see some impact of this. But positive or negative, I don't know. And we're not going to really here to discuss that. So looking forward to talking to Wayne Ryan about that here in just a little bit. I know you're a little removed from that since you're not in this state. And when we get ready to talk about it, we'll bring in Dave Gorby with us. Dave, of course, coached forever in the system here in Fayette County, and I'm sure has some insights on it as well. So we look forward to that. Later on, we'll bring Mark Parsons in. We're going to talk about the Mountaineers, of course, because that's what we do here. And still plenty going on with that. Coach Rodriguez's press conferences are getting more interesting every day. And I always, I watch a talk show every day, a Dan Levitard show. I watch. My wife, it drives her crazy because it's on for 2.5 hours, and I have it on all the time. And I've now started watching Rich Rodriguez press conferences every day as well. And I'm not sure which is more entertaining.
Yeah, I'm not with you on the national show, but I watch Coach, and it's interesting because I also read the comments that fans are making, and they're getting upset at the people asking the questions because there's not a lot of sometimes there aren't answers to the questions that they're asking, and I understand that. I mean. Trying to put Humpty Dumpty back on the wall. We've talked about that. A whole bunch of new people who are playing for the Mountaineers. And, today he talked about what was very interesting was someone asked him about when will the 2 deep lineup come out? And he said, then he asked, you remember, he asked, well, when is that? What's the game time? When are we kicking off against Robert Morris? And he said, maybe that we're looking for the day before. And so, they're trying to put everything together. It's a major undertaking. You coach basketball and just multiply by almost tenfold or more the number of moving parts he has. So
And I like
we're going to get there. No question about that.
And I like the fact that he said, even if I did know now, would I tell you? I mean, why would I tell you that? And so I like that. He's. I'm sure it's like you and I've talked several times.
That's right.
They're trying to, like you said, piece things together. They may not know. I mean, I'm sure he has a good idea of his depth chart and what purpose would there be for him to release that to the media? But again, a lot of new faces, and we're still waiting on some eligibility issues with a couple of key guys. And so I'm sure they're kind of up in the air as well. I'm sure they don't know fully themselves. So, but the excitement's growing a little bit. I know Pat McAfee had a take on it and showed some video of practice and Coach Rodriguez yelling at the ball boy to spot the ball and get the out of here. And he said, that's what we need back here. He said, no offense to Neil Brown, but he said, this is that edge we need.
Yeah.
We gotta get that edge back. So I know everybody's excited.
That's right. That's right. Right. And Greg, I'm gonna get out of here as you mentioned. Dave's going to come in because he's certainly more grounded in high school sports. I just like to say that our purpose today is to be educational. Right. That's really important, and to have Wayne Ryan explain the what's and the whys. I will say I've looked over the material, and as you might expect, very, very prepared, very thoughtfully, with the student athletes in mind, with boundary conditions that you would expect to safeguard certain things. And so I'll use the word impressed, and I'll also use the word important. This is really important. Any major change in the structure and functioning of high school athletics, it's not just the young people involved, it's the communities involved. And so this is going to go forward. Wayne's a great leader. He's got a good board, a lot of consultation. And so I'll get out of here and turn it to you. We'll bring Wayne in, and then Dave will join you in the discussion.
All right. Sounds good. And, with that being said, Frank, this is something, it's a lot like, when this started happening in the college ranks, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. We might as well get out in front of it. And, kudos to the SSAC, for not waiting 5 years from now and saying, oh, we better do what the other, 40 states are doing or whatever. I know there's several states that do it now, but at least getting out in front of it because it's coming. I mean, there's no question about it. And it's better to be prepared than unlike the NCAA and then, try to fix things after they're broken and they can't be fixed. So I'm glad to see this. So I think, like you said, educational purposes, that's what my family tells me. I'm around just for entertainment purposes, not educational purposes. Remember, I maxed out in 7th grade. We've talked about that numerous times as well. All right, let's go ahead and bring Dave in, and then we'll welcome Wayne in as well. Dave Gorby, of course, if you don't know, Dave is a longtime coach here in Fayette County. One of my players way back in the day, and not that he's old or anything, but I am. And Dave played ball for me. He's an avid Mountaineer fan, avid high school sports fan. And Dave, appreciate you jumping in here with us tonight, again on short notice to help us out with this.
Yeah, just a pleasure for the invite. Always enjoy coming on the show or podcast.
All right, let's go ahead now and we'll welcome our guest, Wayne Ryan, of course, Executive Director. Wayne had a stellar coaching career. He's been a teacher, coach. He's done everything at parent. He's done all these things at all these levels. So understands, probably from a lot of different perspectives, what this is going to mean. Wayne, thank you again for joining us on such short notice. I know I just got a hold of you the other night. We know this is a hot topic issue. We're not going to spend the entire time with you hashing that out, but we don't. And again, we don't want. It's not going to be. Well, I think this. I think that. This is going to happen, et cetera, et cetera. I think people just would like to know. What is the policy? But before we get into that, let's talk about you just for a second. Go ahead and because I know your coaching career, again, stellar. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background, where it all started, and how you ended up where you're at today.
Well, first of all, I appreciate you having me on. I spent 30 years in a teacher coach, athletic administrator, and assistant principal role in Summers County at Summers Middle School, Summers County High School. That was my hometown. And 9 years ago, I moved into the job as assistant director at the WVSSAC office. And last year served as the associate director. And now I'm in my first month as the executive director. So it's been an interesting month because we've added 3 new staff members and we've added a new position because really compliance with rules is not something one person can keep up with. So we've added a director of compliance that can specialize in that in the office because everyone else is stretched with a lot of different responsibilities. So that's been a good add. And so my new staff has worked really hard in the past month as we've hit the road. We've been on our clinic tours with our regional principals. We've been on our sports clinic tours with our coaches and officials. And we literally have had very few days in the office together. So I'm anxious to get in the office and get going with some of our goals for the year and making a few changes. But it's an exciting time. And obviously this is a hot topic because we're not playing sports right now, and it hit at a good time for everybody to draw attention to it. So we'll be glad to discuss it and answer your questions as best we can.
I was going to say, man, what a way the first month, what a way to get rolling here. I'm sure you've had a busy schedule over the past week or so with inquiries and interviews, and I've seen you on a few of them already, so I know it's really been a busy time for you. This policy, like I told Frank, I think, this is something that it was coming. I don't, just like in college sports, you can see it coming and it was coming. And, people may want to grumble about it and complain about it and all that, some people, but it's inevitable. And I think rather than, bucking it and trying to fight it, we need to embrace it and figure out how to make it work for the best for everybody and not, not resist and not try to fight it. Like I said, I think it's something that is inevitable. It's coming. But again, I think tonight we'd like to know, what exactly the policy is, how's it going to work? And, what are some of the ramifications, from being involved with it from, not only a student athlete, but maybe a business perspective, because I know there's, I'm sure in some areas, there's a lot of business folks already thinking thoughts in their head about the ways to do this. But what just give us a little outline of what the policy states and what kids can and cannot do.
Well, as you pointed out, it was inevitable. It was going to happen. That type of influence was already taking place. So to put the policy in place made sense. 41 other states, high school associations in the country already have an NIL policy, and we basically formulated our policy by borrowing and stealing from them and then putting it together with a few individual thoughts of our state. And our board of control, our governing body, is our principals. That's who the WVSSAC is principals. And they approved it, understanding that this was something that needed some guidelines. So the policy was basically put in place to protect the student athlete and protect the schools from rules violations as they were coming. I guess you would say more and more things were on the threshold of risking players' amateur status. So we felt with the policy in place, we could address that a little better and make it clear cut, get ahead of what happened in college, because we don't want that disaster. College is a pay-to-play program now. It has no guidelines. It has no policy, so to speak. But we wanted to get ahead of that in West Virginia, and I think this policy does that. And your name, image, and your likeness is you as an individual, and you certainly have your rights to your name, image, and likeness, and you always have had your rights to your name, image, and likeness. But now you'll be able to benefit that if there's certain endorsements or a business that wants to use your name, image, and likeness. The important guideline in the policy and to understand is you can't reference yourself as the successful athlete. You can't use your school name. You can't use your jersey. You can't use your sports prop to say who you are. You have to be established enough in your name, image, and likeness that someone wants your endorsement or thinks they can benefit from you some way. So, I don't think we in West Virginia are going to see some of the reported deals that are out there in other areas. I think we're going to see some local businesses where someone in a community is rather well known and reputable of character and performance that people would recognize. may benefit from this, but I don't think we're going to see an overwhelming amount of NIL deals in West Virginia. But I'm really happy that we put clear guidelines out there in front of it so that the schools and the athletes and even the parents know what they can do. And the school can have zero involvement in this whatsoever. But, the transfer policy that was given to us a few years ago by our legislature certainly changed the landscape of sports. The ability to transfer anytime you want and have athletic eligibility kind of opened the door for this scenario. We think this policy is important to keep it under control as best we can.
Yeah, you mentioned the big deals you hear about. Of course, that's what you're always going to hear about. But in my mind, from a businessman's perspective, and then from being a coach, I can't imagine as a business person, for financial gain, I can't imagine, wanting a high school kid with no jersey, no name on the jersey, anything like that, no school name, advertising for my business for a lot of money. I really can't see the advantage of that from a business perspective. Now I know there's going to be, like you said, influential people in the community, business folks that will be wanting to help. And I think, that might be where it becomes a positive thing, because they're helping anyway. They're donating money, donating time, supplies, et cetera, et cetera. So if they can, maybe jump in on these NILs and sponsor the kids, that would be great. If they're doing it to help the school itself. So I think it's grand. But a kid now, and I'm not real familiar with the way all this works, but so a kid, basically can just go out on their own. The school has no involvement in this, and basically makes the deal with themselves, or have somebody do it for them or whatever. But so they just maybe go to a business and say, hey, I'm available for, to work for you, or to do ads for you or whatever. And then they get paid directly. Is that the way it works?
Well, they could receive a benefit. Obviously what makes the headlines is people who receive a lot of money, but that I don't think we're going to see that. I mean, guys, you guys have sports backgrounds. You're sports fans. I mean, you can name probably less than 10 people in our state of West Virginia throughout history who really would benefit tremendously. But there is obviously the concept of that you could benefit in an endorsement. You might get free tacos, or you might get a free haircut. We've got a neighboring state in which their first NIL deal was just a young man whose name was Freeze. So a heating and cooling agency took him on as a little sponsor. And so, it's and sometimes it will just be for that type of recognition. But I don't think we're going to see. I think these communities and these businesses are already supporting the schools, and so the individual may benefit if their name, image, and likeness is of value. But I don't think it's going to be what it's made out to be because of what NIL is perceived in college.
Right. So one thing I've thought about, and I don't know, and Dave can chime in on this if he'd like. Do you worry about, like, in areas like, say, where I'm at here in Fayette County, at Midland Trail, for example, is where I coached for a long time, and I once was accused of recruiting a player, and I said, how am I going to recruit somebody to Hico, West Virginia? There's not anything there but a school, and but you travel 8 or 9 miles, and you're in Oak Hill that has numerous businesses, fast food, restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. Do you worry any that might pose any type of problem, like, say you got a good player at Trail, and, McDonald's over in Oak Hill, it's owned by an alumni from Oak Hill, says, hey, I would go for free double cheeseburgers for a year, but I don't know if kids would or not. But is that going to be something that is monitored?
Well, it is a concern, but let's be direct. There's a certain level of recruiting happening right now, and it's really hard for us to identify it, find evidence. We get a lot of hearsay. We get a lot of of people saying this is going on, but the evidence is hard to come by. When we find the evidence, we take action. But in this case, if I would leave Midland Trail and show up at Oak Hill, and now I've got an NIL deal, it might be much more obvious that there was undue influence. And so it might be easier for us to enforce that recruiting situation. So we're hoping that is the case. It's not a perfect world, but this pretty much has to be above reproach because it's going to be scrutinized and people will be taking a look. So we don't know exactly how it'll go. It's uncharted territory, but we're hoping that in that way it's a positive. And we're hoping in general that we can just protect the student athlete and the schools from getting involved outside of their own unattached name, image, and likeness. And I think, like you said, the appeal is not as interesting if you can't put on that school jersey and number and be that quarterback or that player that everybody recognizes because of those accolades.
Well, too, and if you, again, getting out in front of it, I think is important. In the college game, it just became a free for all and with no regulation. I think you're right. I think having this policy in place now lets people know that we all know what's going on and we're watching, and you got to do it by the book or you're in trouble. So I think that's a good thing. Also, if you notice, a kid may put on 40 pounds in 6 months from eating the double cheeseburgers. That might be a good sign too. That'd be an investigative thing there.
That's true.
Dave, you want to jump in? Aaron asked, talk to Wayne a little bit about this. I am intrigued by it. I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's great. I honestly, now if I were still coaching, I don't know about this, but having time to look at it and looking at it from the outside in, I think it's a great that we got this policy in place now, and like you said, there's going to be more scrutinization, more folks watching what's going on, to make sure things are done by the book. I think it's good, and for the kids' sake, it's not just about, again, in my mind, it's not just about making money. I mean, these are things that could create opportunities for kids that could really help them, down the road. Not only, not necessarily financially or anything like that, but I mean, social skills and if they do an ad or something like that, learning how to do the marketing. I mean, there's all kinds of good positive things that could come from this. And Dave, you've coached more recently than I, and you're involved in the system a lot more. What's your thoughts on it there quickly about what's going on?
So I was just wondering, you was talking about going off other states because there's 40 other states. You don't have to name them. So was there like one state organization like you was that you particularly like, or was it more like a group and you just wanted to nitpick the policy from a few of them?
That border us, because that's the states that I meet with their executive director weekly, that we have a lot of meetings throughout the year, and those states, so we work together on a lot of things, and then also on states that are similar to West Virginia. I mean, obviously we're not California, we're not New York, so we looked at some states that are similar to West Virginia in a number of schools and economic climates and things like that, and compared those. So great question.
Wayne, are you concerned, like with the border states you mentioned, up in the northern part of the state, probably, and the eastern panhandle, more specifically, about, again, people coming across state lines for those NIL things? Are there going to be any different rules for somebody coming from out of state into the state to play and take an NIL deal? Or is that something that you can't really, control until they get here?
Well, the NIL policy would be the same for any student athlete, but what you've referenced there would go back to our transfer policy. You can't transfer from out of state to a member school in grades 6 through 12 without setting out 365 days, short of a bona fide entire family move. So I don't think you'll see people transferring in that, and as far as that goes. because, those states are going to have pretty much a basic NIL in place also. So I don't really think that is as big a factor as it's looked upon. Again, I think we're very influenced by the college scene and by the recruitment and the pay to play scenario. And that is not what this is. This is simply a policy that is clear cut to the athlete in the school, what you can do and what you can't. It's not a pay to play. It's not a here you can make all this money. It's guidelines to regulate what was going to start to happen more and more, which was those athletes look for opportunities to benefit. And so if you benefit for your name, image, and likeness, more power to you. But you cannot benefit as a member of that school team or that athletic organization, the SSAC, or because of your athletic prowess. And you can't use jersey, can't use number. And let's face it, that jersey and number it brings a lot of recognition with it that you won't have it with just your name, image, and likeness.
Well, again, I think it's a great idea. I think getting a policy in place is getting ahead of the game. That's a good idea. I wish, looking back, I'd have thought about NIL when I was coaching. I could have probably sold some used cars or something. Gorby, what do you think?
Yeah, I could be a car salesman. Yeah.
I could have been the before picture on all these weight loss things. I could have been the before shot. That'd been a good NIL for me. Wayne, I know there's more than just this going on, and we want to talk about some of that as well. You want to just go ahead and talk about some of the things that are happening with the SSAC. I know you've been in charge for a month, and I'm sure it's been a hectic month already, but you're fully aware of everything that's going on because you've been there for a while now. Let's talk about some other stuff that's happening with the SSAC and some positives that are going on.
Sure. First of all, our general goal as a new staff is we're going to work really hard on the education component. And what I mean by that is very few people understand what the SSAC organization is. That very few people understand that the principals and the member schools are the SSAC. I work for them. Our office building works for them. We have no true power or entity in and of ourselves. We're a private entity. We do not receive taxpayer funds, but we are there to oversee high school athletics by the authority of our principals, our State Board of Education, and the legislature. So we're excited about this coming year because we've got, we had a rough year last year with classifications. That's no secret. A lot of issues were up, and the Board of Control was unified in their efforts to solve that and move forward for now. And we've done that. But we've expanded our state tournaments in cross country and track to 4 classes also. But everything now, Coach, back in your day, if you remember, we were on 2-year cycles, and we learned that 2-year cycles wasn't enough, and we went to 4, and that was a better change at the time. But given the landscape, the change in school population, and where we're at right now, the board voted to go back to 2-year cycles. So we're constantly going to be evaluating and moving forward what is best because, it's a unique situation in that we've got fewer schools and more classes. And then you get into your regional alignments, and everybody has something of concern. We don't have enough schools for sectionals anymore. It used to be in sectionals, you had 6 or 7 schools. Now you were having 2 and 3. So we had to go to all regional alignments in all of our sports. And so if you've ever looked at a map of West Virginia, we are shaped quite uniquely. If you have a certain number of schools in the classes, that is what it is, that number set by your classifications. And then you've got to group them together into regionals. There will always be certain areas and certain schools that are outliers that are literally misplaced. But if you can draw it up without misplacing anybody, you're just a better person. Anybody that's ever been involved in the process before. And probably what you did, you'll take care of some of those that you know, and you'll create a problem for some of those you don't know as well. It's really a tough task. And we worked very hard on that. We took our school's input on after our first draft, made some tweaks and changes, and did the best we could on that. But also, we're excited about soccer. Soccer is, of course, held in Beckley, and it's going to expand to 3 classes. So we're going to have a girls and boys state tournament in 3 classes in soccer. Our 2-class sports are undergoing a major change in that they're no longer going to be classified as quad A, triple, double, or single, traditional lettered classifications. Reason being, there was a lot of concern that I don't want my school to be quad A in one sport and triple A in another and double A in one. So we took that away by just going Division I, Division II in sports that are two classes, and that's swim, and that's tennis, and that's wrestling. They'll be Division I and Division II. So that way you can say, I'm a quad A school, I'm a triple A school, I'm a double A school, and you are in everything except the two class sports in which you're Division I or Division II. So we made that change. And so, we're excited about those changes. And again, we're excited about the fact that over the next 2 years, we're going to evaluate it and look at the data really hard and see what we need to do to continue to improve things and take our coaches, committees input and our administrators and leaders input. And we'll try to make positive changes as we move forward.
Well, I tell you what, everything that sounds good. I know that I know the classification thing can be a nightmare, and I've always said there's always going to be somebody right on the line, at the bottom of the line and at the top of the line that people are going to say you shouldn't be there. But yeah, I think you've done a pretty good job of getting people in the right spots, and it's not an easy job. That's quite a task. And like you said, if you ever look at a map and look at populations in this state, I mean, you go from one end to the other, and you go from schools with 1,800 kids down to schools with 180 kids, and it's impossible task, really. It is, and I credit you guys for doing a yeoman's job, and I appreciate really the policy that's coming out on the NIL. I think it's a great idea again, and congratulations to you on the job, and I know you'll be great at it, just like you have been with your coaching career and everything else you've been involved with, and looking forward to seeing how things shake out. And another time, I want to say thank you for joining us on such short notice. It's a busy time.
Well, I'm glad it worked out, Coach. I appreciate it. We've known each other a long time, and I hope we've educated a few people tonight and answered a few questions, because I think it's important that people understand the process. So it was good to be with you.
Absolutely. Very informative. Thank you so much, Wayne. Good luck to you the rest of the way with this thing. And hopefully we can hook up again and talk about some other issues when the time arises.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Wayne Ryan, Executive Director of the SSAC, and a very informative talk here, Dave. I know Frank as well. Educational, and I think that's what we need to do in a lot of areas in this country. But you need to be educated on these things before you start commenting, criticizing, and blaming this person for that and this person for that. I think, and again, I'll say this again, the policy being put in place is what's the important thing right now. It had to be done. They out ahead of it before things get out of hand. And I think, like Wayne said, I don't think in West Virginia you're going to see this mad money start rolling in, and this rush of kids out, selling cars or whatever it is they're doing. I just don't see that happening here. I think that,
unknown caller.
Uh-oh. And like I said, that's probably a bill collector, Frank. You better get that. I don't know if he can hear me. Anyway, I think, I don't think we're going to see, this just all out Wild West show like we have in the NCAA. I know we're not going to see that, but again, coming from it, and Frank, you may have a better take on this than me. From a business person's perspective, I'm not going to pay big money or give big things to advertise if it's not going to benefit me any, if I'm looking to advertise to make money. So I can't see, people knocking.
Yeah, I'll tell you, you have the background with Wayne. I'm meeting him for the first time tonight. And I'll tell you, leadership is leadership, and leadership is so important for public confidence. what other states are doing. So a very thoughtful, systematic, public effort. And then what that does, and you brought it up, Greg, you get ahead of other states, and you learn from what the states that have already have the plan in place, so you don't make the same mistakes. So I was very impressed, and West Virginia is very, 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 very lucky to have someone like Wayne as their executive director. And as you mentioned, Greg, he's been in the job since July 1. So he's, of course, he was at the office as associate director before that, but very impressive, very impressive. And I think we lost him. You know, I should say this when he was on there, but what happened, that telephone call was from the voice of Motown. I got a NIL contract with the voice of Motown guys, and so this is my last show. That is a joke, I'm telling you. Anyway, we lost Greg. I didn't see the message to the audience. I'm seeing it now. My computer is about to shut down, and it was from Greg. Anyway, let's make the pivot. We're so pleased to have Mark and Dave back with us. We're going to talk about the subject everybody's talking about, even though, you know, Greg and I talk about this all the time, guys. This season is so different. The conversation that we've had on this show about what's happening, you know, since spring, now they're in fall camp, is very different because there's so much more known versus more unknown. So one of the things we thought we would do tonight is to have both of you on, so each of you could share your thoughts to begin with in terms of what you're seeing so far from the fall practices, where you think things are going, what you expect, and then we'll have a conversation, and I'm sure Greg will be able to join us soon. So why don't we start with you, Dave? Share your thoughts. What are you seeing so far? What are the positives? What are the concerns? Take it away.
Yeah, you know, just kind of paying attention to Rich Rod on his press conferences. You know, he's obviously talked about the quarterback. He's talked about the running back. He's talked about slot receiver a good bit, and then he's talked about the O-line in particular. Not naming players, but obviously he keeps talking about you know, the battle quarterback. Obviously, he's not announcing a depth chart as much as he's talked about depth chart the past ever since camp opened up. But you know, running back depth is kind of a concern right now, especially them taking the hit here in the past couple of days that the Knighton kid is no longer on the team. So they need to get that lawsuit taken care of, where they can at least gain Ty Edwards back on the team or eligible to play. And he's talked about the slot receivers a good bit. I'm trying to fire off on the name. Obviously, that's Gallagher, Singleton, Bowie, and Preston Fox. So obviously, we might see production from this season. Yeah, he keeps talking about the physicalness of the offensive line to get better. So we'll see how it goes on that. And that's from the offensive side. I'm hearing about.
Yeah, I mean, what's amazing about it, in my understanding with the Knighton declaration of not being eligible, it was just one class. That wasn't that true?
Online class credit is what I read.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And so then there's really no hope for him to come back.
Yeah, it went transfer from what I was reading. So
yeah, and so if Ty Edwards doesn't come back, then who do you think is going to be next in line? There's a lot of talk about Hubbard might be that guy.
Yeah, well, obviously Hubbard's probably that second guy right now, behind White, and the JUCO kid Bowers. I think that's his name. The one with the 4.3 speed. I think that's I think that's probably the next one after that. But the thing Ty Edwards brings is more of a physical type of run game compared to those three. So I think that might might be why we need Ty Edwards in there. Um, but I have been reading, and we talked about speed. We're talking about burners. We do have burners on the defensive side of the ball, is what I've read. So, uh, and I think that's what we've been lacking the past couple of years. Haven't had burners on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the open space, to make the play.
Yeah. Your thoughts, Mark, in terms of what you're seeing so far, and you can comment on anything that Dave mentioned too.
Yeah, again, this is the most unpredictable Mountaineer team I can ever remember. 70-some new players. I think the big difference in this, whether this hearing on Monday with the four guys who are have sued the NCAA and trying to get eligibility, if they get denied, that could cost us a couple of games, 2 or 3 games. We got 2 starters in that group. You got Jamori Robinson, defensive end, Justin Harrington, who's a safety. And then you've got running back Ty Edwards, which Dave had mentioned. And then you also have a backup wide receiver, Jeffrey Weimer, who's been highly touted as well. He was, I guess, a second-team player. But he's kind of moving along here. If he lost 2 players, we lost Aiden Bussell from University of Tennessee. He's medically retiring. And then David mentioned Jalen Naughton from SMU is no longer eligible. And he's added a couple players. He added a defensive end. I'm going to try to pronounce this. It's Oluwasel Omatoshu from Oregon State. And then a linebacker, Caleb Nylandahl from a JUCO, Cerritos Community College in California. That's actually the same school that produced defensive end Adam.
Yeah. Did we lose Mark? Huh. Yeah. So yeah, we lost you, Mark. I think maybe if you log off and log back in, that might help. Yeah, great. Yeah, I mean, we got Greg. You rejoined us, and that's great. Both guys gave us some real perspective on what's going on. Because, in fact, there's a lot more details that we're getting here from than that you might get otherwise. And so, Dave, continue with your thoughts while Mark comes back in.
He was kind of going more in detail on the hearing, and I think the one guy, obviously I was mentioning Ty Edwards, and that's just helping the depth piece, but I think everybody is more worried about is Jamori Robertson, just because he's more of the X factor on that could be part of that defense. And, I'm not real concerned about the defensive line. That was kind of a strong suit with the one part of Neil Brown's defense was I didn't think they had like all Americans on that defensive line, but I thought all those guys were real, like just they held the line, and that's what they needed to do. And that's Hammond Russell, that's Eddie V, Corey McIntyre's in that group, Nate Gabriel, but then they also added that Eddie Kelly transfer. I seen a picture of that guy. Man, you talk about size. I mean, they definitely didn't lose size adding that guy. And then, but going back, mentioning about the burners, I just think getting guys like Michael Coates and Fred Perry and Jason Chambers, Derek Carter, I just think that's going to help that back end of the defense so much. Even though we're unsure, just hearing that the team speed is just overall better, I think that's got to help. That just got to help.
That's right. Mark, thanks for being back with us. Are you hearing anything about the lawsuit, even rumors about whether this is good, when we're going to hear and what we might hear? Because you're right about Jamori. He's terrific. That's ridiculous if we don't have.
What I've heard is, the hearing is coming up Monday, and the judge has been assigned the case, has been very positive about athletes getting eligible, and I'm hoping that plays into our favor and we get these guys going. I mean, they're going to be way behind conditioning wise and as far as the learning curve, but hopefully by the pit game we can get them. They can be up to snuff. I really think there's a big difference there between winning and losing in 2 to 3 games just because of the defensive starters, and I think that short yardage running back is going to have a lot to have a lot of positive there too if he's eligible. I mean, we need somebody like Donaldson or Owen Schmidt in there to get those yardage. White, when he gets down the red zone, sometimes he gets stopped. He's not quite big enough for that role. So I think that's a big plus. We've got to get those guys eligible. Can I move on to some of the other positions? Is that okay? Or yeah,
Sure.
David mentioned the receivers and so forth. There's been some. The first team's kind of been fairly constant, but there's been some shakeups, in the other areas. I mean, as far as the 2 deep, and this is all according. Fresh off the press today from 24/7 Sports, but as I said, that changes every 10 minutes. So we just, tomorrow could be different. But at the flanker slot, we've got Jaden Bray. He's, been a mainstay on the team, but he was injured last year, so he didn't play a whole lot second half of the season. If he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be a player. And then you have behind him, you have Justin Smith-Brown's transfer from South Carolina State. They're very high on him. Now, Jeffrey Weimer is ruled eligible in this hearing, then he's going to slide into that 2 spot. They're very high on him and Brown. So you got 3 good ones there. And then at the slot, of course, Rodney Gallagher is the first teamer. We're all familiar with him. And they brought in Orrin Singleton from Eastern Michigan. They seem to be high on him. And then at the other receiver slot, we have at split end, we have Cam Vaughn, transfer from Jacksonville State. He's going to be the big play guy, I think. And then behind him, a guy that's moved up the chart since we talked a couple of weeks ago is Christian Hamilton, for a transfer from North Carolina. So he's kind of getting some looks there. Tight end that's kind of been a constant. We've got Grayson Barnes, transfer from Northern Illinois. He's a good blocker. He has good hands. I think he's going to be a positive there for us. And then on the other, behind him, you have Jacob Barrick. He's a transfer from Jacksonville State. He's kind of worked his way up. He's also a native of Martinsburg, West Virginia. So we got a native son in there at that one. Now the line on the offense has taken a lot of changes. Left tackle, we still have Nick Cray. They've got him listed first team. Behind him is Xavier Bosley. Both of those are holdovers for Neil Brown. Bosley had actually transferred last year from Jacksonville State. He's from South Charleston originally. And then left guard, you have Walter Youngbear from Tulsa. And behind him, they've shifted the springs around. They've got Malik Agbo from Texas. And then right tackle, you have Tykeus Crawford from Arkansas and Mikael Clay from North Alabama. And right guard, Kimo McAnally from LSU and Cooper Young behind him. And then at center, holdover from Neil Brown's crew was Landon Livingston. And second team's Carson Lee's transfer from Mississippi State. And moving on to the defense, got a little bit of a shake-up there, but we've got Eddie Kelly down one end. He's a transfer from Missouri. And behind him, Devin Grant from Incarnate Word has worked his way up from near the bottom of the depth chart, kind of up to that second team slot. Defensive tackle, as David said earlier, we're kind of constant on most of the defensive line. We got Eddie V in the first team, and then Asani Redwood behind him. Nose tackle is Hammond Russell, and behind him is Nate Gabriel. Then you can also kind of throw in Corey McIntyre, and there's another good one that's going to get some reps. So I think defensive line wise, we're going to be fairly solid there. Now the secondary is other than a couple players, it's a rotating. Well, actually, I didn't touch on the other end. The band that is right now, it's Curtis Jones, who's from Cabell Midland. Now Jamori Robinson comes in. He's going to get that spot if he can get ruled eligible. But right now they've got Curtis Jones in there and Braden Siders. They moved him from a linebacker over there. He's from Wyoming. And then Mike linebacker, we got Reed Carrico, who's a constant there from last year. And behind him is All-American for a group of five from Southern Illinois, Ben Bogle. Actually, from a group of five. And then you have the off-ball linebacker is Chase Wilson from Colorado State, transferred in. And then the guy that's worked his way up from near the bottom was John Lewis, a linebacker from Mississippi State. And you'll see in there that Ben Cutter's been a starter a lot the last couple of years. He's like 13 now, so he's kind of dropped down there a little bit. Cornerback one, you got Michael Coates, which David mentioned earlier from Nevada. He's like Jamori Robinson. They're both high on the NFL list. They're all looking at them. Behind him, you have Jason Chambers, transfer from App State. And then you have at quarterback two, you've got Jordan Scruggs from South Alabama. And behind him is Devontae Golden Wilson from Akron. At the high safety, you've got Kakura Tarnu, who's a holdover from Neil Brown. Actually, he played corner last year, but he had transferred in from Jacksonville State last year, and he's changed positions now for this season. Behind him, you have Jordan Walker from Chattanooga. Now, this is where it gets a little hairy here. At the box safety, right now we have Derek Carter transfer from Jacksonville State, and backing him up is Darian Lewis from Akron. But if Justin Harrington, who's the transfer from Washington, is ruled eligible, then he's going to slide in on the first team there. So there's a lot of ifs. If these come through, then I think we're going to be okay. But if not, it's going to be some, you just have to kind of wait and see. And then we have the nickelback. We have Fred Perry, who's kind of been a constant there from transfer from Jack State. And William Davis has worked his way up from the bottom. He's from a smaller Division II school, Virginia Union, and he's worked his way into the second team there. Now, special teams, we had some openings there last week. We didn't know what was going on. They've got a little bit more clarity there. Punter, you've got Oliver Straw, of course. He's back from Australia. And behind him is Adam Steyer, native from Morgantown. And both those guys will be handling the holding duties on extra points. Place kicker is Cade Hensley's transfer from Coastal Carolina. And the kickoff guy is Ethan Head, transfer from Tulane. And both of those can interchange if someone's injured or they need to do some shifts there. Long snapper is Moss McGuire. Behind him is Caden Seller. And then here are some new positions that they had not listed the last couple of times we talked. At punt return, they've got Preston Fox first, Oren Singleton, transfer from Eastern Michigan, the wide receiver. He's backing him up. And then on kickoff return, you have Gerard Bowie, transfer from Jacksonville State, is a native of Martinsburg. And then Preston Fox on kick return also. And that's kind of what 24/7 is saying. But like I said, that kind of changes daily. And I think a lot of this is going to hinge on what happens Monday. And I just think there's still a lot. It's a work in progress. There's a lot of unknowns. And I think when Rich Rod says we're going to be right up until, the game day of finding out who's where, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think there's still going to be some moves made. And there's still some guys on the offensive line that are still, they're in the third, fourth team that could slide in there. It's just, they could move up the charts as well. We just have to kind of wait and see. But any questions?
Greg, you're back with us, so I'll kick it to you.
And Dave too. The excitement continues to grow. And I know y'all probably did discuss the quarterback situation. I heard Coach Rodriguez talking in one of his press conferences and said, if we have one that can play and help us win, we'll play one. If we have two, we'll play two. If we have three, we'll play three. So I don't care how many we got. If they can help us win, they're going to play. Do you see, is there any indication that he might try to go with a little bit of a quarterback rotation?
I think he may go with a dual quarterback thing. We'll see. I think I think Nico gives you leadership, but I think he also gives you a better arm, and he can run, but that's not his forte. He's a better passer. But then I think Jalen Anderson gives you the wheel. He has wheels, and he has a decent arm too, but he gives you a little bit different look. And I've not been a real big fan of having two quarterbacks, myself. But a couple of times Don Nealon did it, and it worked. In '93 they had two quarterbacks with Kelchner and Darren Studstill, and it worked okay there. So I'm not ruling it out. I think it could happen.
I was just going to go ahead and say, let's go back to Rich Rod. I mean, his first year, Rashid wasn't quite ready yet.
No, he wasn't.
Remember, we had Brad Lewis, and then it kind of finagled into both of them back and forth a little bit. And Rashid kind of took over the duties later in the year. And then it was Rashid for the next couple years. And then the start of the 05 year, it was Benark and Pat White. And
right.
Injury from Benark to finally give it to Pat White. so yes, I can absolutely see a mixture of quarterbacks
Exactly.
out there on the field to start the year. So,
Well, I think it's got to make it.
and I was gonna say, how I read things, I think Scotty Fox is going to be the dude in the future. I just don't know if he's ready yet for.
He's going to be good, I think.
Yeah, because how you read how Rich Rod wants them to be able to do both, it sounds like Scotty can do both pretty dang good. so that's why I think he might be the future at that position.
I agree.
So,
Well, I think from a fan's perspective, it's comforting to know that you've got somebody with Nico's experience and the ability. We've seen him play, so we know he can play. And then the idea that there's people there that are as good, or maybe in some cases better, I think that's encouraging and just adds a little bit more of the excitement. I think I think offensively, if that line, if you base it on what you've read about them, what you've seen from their playing days in other schools, that offensive line could gel into a pretty good front. Sounds like they got some athletes. I think depth will be the key. But yeah, I think it's pretty exciting what could shape up there for that offense. And
I think we're going to have better depth on the offensive line than we did the whole Neil Brown era. Just based on the transfers he's brought in some solid guys there. It's all about chemistry, though. They got to gel together, and we'll see how it happens.
Yep.
I'd like to add one thing in there. Talking about gelling together. It's all over social media. You're hearing about the Pitt game already. It's going to be a big one. Game day may come, and Pat McAfee's talking about doing a show there. It's going to be a big thing. But you've got 2 games prior to that. Robert Morris, we shouldn't have any trouble there at all. But I think you still got to play the game and stay focused. Chance to work out some bugs there. Now, IU, on the other hand, is going to be a test. They had a pretty good year last year. They beat Jacksonville State in their bowl game. And everybody is talking like they're just going to go in there in this small stadium and annihilate these guys. And I see it all over social media. And I'm like, not so fast. I mean, they have a winning record versus Power 4 teams in their home stadium. They have won 5. They've lost 4 over the years. They've actually beaten WVU twice there. 8. And that's the only 2 times West Virginia's played there. Now, albeit it was 1897 and 1949. I guess Frank would be the only one who was around to witness that. But anyways, that's for my time. But they've lost. They beat West Virginia twice. They beat Pitt in 2005. They beat Kansas in 2017, and they beat Iowa State in 2023. Now, on the other hand, they have lost some games. They've lost 4 at home. They lost Virginia Tech in 1972. They lost to Minnesota in 2003. They lost to Ohio State in 2001 and Syracuse in 2021. So, versus home and away in the last 7 or 8 tries, I think they're like 1-6, 1-7 versus Power 4 schools. But at home, they've done a pretty good job there, and I think we can't overlook that game. And I think that's a chance to really kind of see where we stand a little bit. And I think that'll be a good test for us before Pitt. And Pitt's going to be emotional. It's going to be crazy there. It's going to be a sellout, and just the atmosphere should be unreal. But, just because we've got a good atmosphere, I've seen us have 66,000 in there before, and Penn State beat us 30-0. So, I mean, you just got to play the game. You've got to stay focused. And Pitt's going to be good. They've got some votes for top 25, and I'm hoping we start out 3-0. I'm going to be optimistic that we'll be 3-0, and I think things I don't know if you saw it on the statewide sports line, but Tony Caridi was talking about it. That could really get the wheels turning and get a little confidence. You just don't know what's going to happen at that point. So that's kind of where I see it going.
Hey, Mark, I was at that 49 game. I'll tell you, it made me it made me sick because in those days you can get hot dogs in Athens for 5 cents. I had 20 of those things, and I got sick. I didn't make it through the end of the game. I got sick. So and I said I'd never go back to Athens again. And I hear that hot dogs are up to 20 cents. So. Anyway.
Yeah, Frank, I was gonna say Mark is bucking to get thrown off of the show.
That's what I thought.
He's trying to work his way out of the rotation.
No, that seriously, I'll tell you, maybe it's my small brain, but Dave, everything's said and done. The two things I'm looking at for this team from the get-go: can you throw the ball downfield? Can you throw the ball downfield? And number two, can you stop the other team, particularly their passing game? I mean, if the Mountaineers can do that, when you think about in the pit games, oh my God, I saw a rerun of that debacle last year when we were ahead and lost it at the end with that long pass on third down. If we could do two of those things, I'd be so happy. Dave, given what you've seen so far, what are the odds that they can do those two things? Throw it down the field, stop the opposition on the passing.
Well, it's kind of like Mark said. Cam Vaughn is probably going to be our downtown guy, but he's got to be able to catch other passes too. But I think that's what we were kind of missing from last year's team. It didn't seem like Garrett and Traylon Ray ever really connected downtown like they did the year before. Like I remember Nico did, like against Arizona. Nico hit Traylon Ray like there in the first half. I'm like, why haven't we been able to do that? But yeah, I think having a guy like Cam Vaughn will definitely help out those matters. Just having speed. That's what you got to have on those downtown threats. But on the defensive side, on the back end, it has to be better. Like, I mean, what were we, like 120, 118, 119? It has to be better. like even if they're like in the 50s or 60s, it will seem better than what it has been the past 4 years, it seems like, on that back end. So,
Dave, what do you think about Michael Coates? Like, the Michael Coates, we haven't had a true shutdown corner since Rasul Douglas. I think he's going to be the guy we haven't had. I think he's going to be a big difference. There's guys on ESPN say we got to steal with him, so we're going to find out in a couple of weeks. But I think he's going to make a big difference back there. I think Harrington's going to make a difference at safety. He's just got to get eligible.
Just having
I think too.
better athletes is going to make it better. And
I think we're faster. It's going to be faster, and we are bigger.
Mm-hmm,
we're going to be bigger. Yeah, that's why those guys are moving up at linebacker, because they're bigger.
And I think if you look back at last year too, and we talked about this numerous times on the show, it wasn't always necessarily talent back there in the defensive backfield as much as it seemed like schematics, seemed like they had a hard time figuring out what they were doing. And then speed obviously was an issue, not only back there, but, our linebackers seemed a little slow. Covering folks, and we didn't get a lot of pass rush all the time. And I think if you change those things, then you throw in the athletes in that back end, it's going to be a whole lot better.
Well, like Mark was talking about earlier, Ben Cutter is down third on the depth chart, and we're like, wait a second. But I think that's what's always kind of hurt Ben Cutter is his speed, especially when we play the teams with more speed. That's when he kind of doesn't do his thing out there. So I think that's kind of why you see him knocked down on the depth chart a little bit.
I agree.
Yep. I agree with you. And like I said, I think, anybody that knows anything about football knows that, your pass rush is pivotal when it comes to your pass defense. You got to get some pressure back there and not let the quarterback, pick and choose. And a lot of times last year we just gave too much time and impossible for those guys to cover. Plus, I think it just seems like there was a lot of confusion back there. I know, Frank, we talked about that numerous times about it. Just seemed like they didn't know where they were supposed to go, and there's so many broken coverages. And hopefully that'll be rectified. I think it will. And then again, you throw in some better athletes back there, and you got something going. So I think it's going to be much improved. It may not be great, but it's going to be a heck of a lot better than what it was, for sure.
Yeah,
Guys,
I think
appreciate you, Mark, Dave. Man, you guys definitely in the know. Frank, they seem to know so much more than I do about what's going on, and I'm not sure how they do that. I'm not sure how they find out all this information, but we're tickled to death that they do, and glad to get them on here. Guys, we appreciate you so much. Wealth of information.
one thing I wanted to add, I'm not slamming Neil Brown, his staff, or anything. I think he was a good man. I think he tried hard, but I really think one of his big downfalls that hurt him was when Koenig, the defensive coordinator, was let go. We all know about that, what that was related to. It wasn't about on the field performance. And he did not, he hired from within, and he did not hire a true defensive coordinator. And I think that's what killed us. I just don't think, I don't think we had the experience on that side of the ball, the coaching staff we didn't seem to know where we were supposed to be. And I think that's exactly why. I think there was a big drop off after he left.
Yep, I think you're right. Guys, again, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I know Frank and I both enjoy listening to that and getting the inside scoop on what's going on. Frank, I know these guys seem to know a whole lot more than you do about what's going on, and it's always fun to talk to them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Great guys.
Yep. All right. Well, we're running short on time again, and it's going to do it for another Wednesday night. Appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening to us, and a great job with our guests tonight. Thanks to Wayne Ryan, Dave Gorby, Mark Parsons. Got a ton of information tonight, and we talked about things being educational. I think we're turning into Frank, you love this. It's turning into an educational show.
There you go.
We're educating folks.
There you go. And we'll do it a little bit and a lot of history next week.
Yes, sir.
Boy, are we going to go into history next week. If you could put that up, Darren, we'll show our guest for next week that goes back to 1963.
Friendly fellow. I think people are going to really enjoy listening to him talk. Like I said, he's very humble, and he's tickled to death about being on the show. We're tickled to death to have him, but I know he's going to be fun to listen to. So I'm going to have some great stories. I've already heard a few of them.
Yeah, Chuck Kinder got the NCAA gave West Virginia approval to have someone wear 100 to earmark the 100th anniversary of the founding of the state. So in 1960, the good news was he got the jersey, came out, and you saw the jersey there. The bad news, it was the opening game of the 1963 season. And I watched some film today. We definitely won't show it next week. Roger Staubach came to Mountaineer Field. I think it was the biggest crowd ever at that time in the history, and just sliced and diced the Mountaineers. And Chuck kicked one extra point. The score was something, I can't remember exactly what the score was, like 63-7 or something like that. But it was, but he had a great career, and he has plenty of stories, and we look forward to having him next week.
Yep, it's going to be a lot of fun. I think people will really enjoy it. Well, Frank, it's been fun as always, and very informative tonight. Great show, and truly enjoyed listening to these guys, all three of them, with the wealth of information. It was a lot of fun. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. and right here on the New River Network, as well as Voice College Football. Look forward to coming to you again next week, next Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Frank and I will be there, and we'll have another great show for you. So we look forward to that. Good night, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.